Thomas Cromwell didn't start his life as someone you'd expect to end up as one of the most influential men in Tudor England. Born around 1485 to a blacksmith, his early days were less courtly and more mercenary for hire in Italy. Not exactly your typical résumé for a future political mastermind. But Cromwell wasn't your typical guy. He had street smarts, sharp elbows, and a nose for opportunity that would put any royal schemer to shame. Cromwell's climb up the Tudor ranks wasn't your typical lawyer-to-courtier story. Forget fancy law school. Cromwell crafted his legal chops the hard way, by getting his hands dirty in real-world negotiations and backroom deals. The man didn't become a lawyer through schooling. He learned by doing, turning every scandal and power play into a learning experience. And it worked. His unorthodox expertise made him the king's go-to problem solver when no one else could get the job done. After his mentor, Cardinal Wolsey, fell out of favor, thanks to failing to secure Henry VIII a divorce, Cromwell did what any ambitious climber would do. He pivoted faster than a soap opera villain, pledging loyalty to Henry. As Henry's chief secretary, Cromwell didn't just shuffle papers. He created a whole new world order. Need to ditch your first wife, Catherine of Aragon, for a younger model? Cromwell was your man. He engineered Henry's marriage to Anne Boleyn, acting like the king's personal wedding planner turned divorce attorney. But here's where it gets juicy. Once Anne Boleyn failed to deliver a male heir, she was no longer Henry's flavor of the month. Cromwell flipped the script again, pulling together a mix of rumors and gossip to accuse her of adultery, even suggesting she'd gotten cozy with her own brother. Scandalous? Absolutely. But effective, Anne was executed, and Cromwell was riding high as Henry's right-hand man. Not one to rest on his laurels, Cromwell dove headfirst into religious reform, cutting ties with the Catholic Church and making Henry the supreme head of the Church of England. He seized church lands, filled the crown's coffers, and kept the conservative nobles on their toes, all while building his own influence. But Cromwell's rise wasn't without enemies. His power and reforms stirred resentment among the nobility, who saw him as a commoner meddling in high matters. Then, in classic Cromwell fashion, he played the matchmaker for Henry VIII. The Anne of Cleves fiasco was meant to be a diplomatic win, a union that would ally England with Protestant German states. But when it arrived, Henry took one look and was horrified. Calling her a Flanders mare, he couldn't stomach the thought of consummating the marriage. Cromwell, the architect of this disastrous union, found himself on thin ice. And here's where his careful plans began to unravel like a bad Shakespearean tragedy. Cromwell's enemies, especially Thomas Howard, the Duke of Norfolk, were waiting for the perfect chance to strike. Norfolk's ace card? His own niece, the young and flirtatious Catherine Howard, a giggling teenager who Henry quickly became besotted with. Now in his 40s, Henry saw this young girl as the perfect antidote to his unhappy marriage. Cromwell, however, suddenly found himself without any favor or protection. The pillow talk of Catherine Howard, spurred on by her ambitious family, sealed his doom. His eventual fall was both swift and brutal. In 1540, Henry accused him of treason and heresy, stripping Cromwell of his titles, wealth, and reputation in one blow. The irony? Cromwell, the so-called lawyer who bent the law for Henry's divorces, was condemned without trial. Upon his arrest, he famously retorted, "This then is my reward for faithful service." He met his end on Tower Hill, beheaded and branded a traitor. Henry, ever fickle, would soon regret it, lamenting, "I have put to death the most faithful servant I ever had." Adding insult to injury, Cromwell's assets went straight to Catherine Howard, the same woman whose rise he couldn't stop. But karma's a cruel mistress. It turned out that Catherine was playing fast and loose with her marital vows. She wasn't exactly the rose without a thorn Henry thought she was, and when her infidelities came to light, she was sent to the chopping block in 1542, a twisted echo of Cromwell's own fate. It's almost poetic, isn't it? Cromwell's end paved the way for a queen's rise, which then led to her own dramatic fall. Cromwell's legacy is as messy as Henry's love life. Sure, he's the guy who set the stage for England's Protestant shift, but he's also the one who played puppet master with people's lives. He was the master of making and breaking alliances, only to be brought down by a dose of pillow talk and Henry's whims. It just goes to show, play with fire, and sooner or later, you're going to get burned. A reminder that in Henry VIII's court, the flames burned bright.